it's a very interesting scenario playing out in the coming 10th Assembly, specifically the House of Representatives. Now, unlike the outgoing 9th Assembly, no single party has the clear-cut majority of 180 members or more. So let's take a look at the composition of the House of Representatives particularly, and this has been compiled by good friends at Civic Hive. You'll see that as at the last check, the APC, that's the All Progressives Congress, which used to have that clear-cut majority, now has 176 of the members elect for the coming 10th Assembly. The PDP follows with 118, the Labour Party with 35, NNPP with 19, APGA 5, SDP and ADC with 2 apiece, and YPP with 1. There's still 2 of those pending as at this time. So clearly, you see that the APC has 176, while the minority parties all put together have 182. That is 6 more than what the APC has. But clearly, no single party has more than 180. That's, of course, half of the 360 members that make up the House of Representatives. So very interesting, really. And a caucus called the Greater Majority has now emerged with members said to be across the 7 minority parties. And they say that they will contest for the position of Speaker and give the support of all of the over 180 members to their own candidate. So what's this plan about, really? What is this Greater Majority's agenda for you and I? After all, at the end of the day, they're our representatives. Let's get into the conversation with Mr. Afam Ogene, who is a member-elect representing Ogbaru Federal Constituency in Anambra State of the Labour Party. He was also Deputy Chairman Media in the 7th Assembly. That's from 2011 to 2015. Good evening, Honourable. Thank you for joining us on Politics Today.
Thank you, Kayode, and good evening, viewers.
Well, Honourable, it's quite interesting what is playing out, as we've shown with those figures, but particularly with the Greater Majority Caucus, as it has been called. What is going on? Because yesterday we saw the Joint Task. That's again another group, an umbrella group, which also says it has members of the APC and the minority parties, including Labour, and they say they have resolved to support, the APC's decision. So what is playing out here, really?
First, Kayode, a clarification. In the House, we recognize only a majority party and the minority caucus. The joint task that you just mentioned would at best be a pressure group within the House. So for us in the greater minority, what we are is a statutory body, because when we get into the House, the majority party sits on one side of the aisle, and every other person who is a minority member queues behind the minority leadership. Having said that, the greater minority, what evolved is there are 3 scenarios basically during which you can influence legislative outcomes, especially from the minority side. One of which is constraint on the supposed majority party. If they do not have an overwhelming majority, as we have in the current circumstance, where the APC, as you read out, has 176 members elect, it could be an opportunity, it could give an opportunity for the minority parties to try to influence the outcomes in a legislature. In another situation, where there is cohesiveness of the minority, they could also try to exploit that, like we have in the current situation in the fight for the speakership and the presiding officers of the House. A third scenario is if you have sufficient motivation, like we also do, there is an opening for us to also go for the presiding officer's position. Don't forget that Section 50 of the Constitution, Section 50B, states that members talking about the House of Representatives, should elect a speaker and a deputy speaker from among themselves. There is no clear-cut division, whether it's coming from the minority, the party with the largest membership or not. It simply says that we should actually elect our leadership from amongst ourselves. So these are the scenarios playing out, and as lawmakers, we are simply catching in on it.
Well, I'm looking at the communique released by this minority caucuses, also called the Greater Majority, and you see the third point in that communique talked about the fact that you say you will remain one indivisible coalition during the 10th National Assembly. You had earlier said that you would field a candidate or someone to run for that position, but that particular point about remaining one indivisible coalition, well, you might say that the joint task does not have that statutory backing. But in any case, there are members who are there, and I'm sure you probably saw that event where you had members of different political parties right there, even introducing themselves. I even saw a member of the Labour Party represented. So are you really unified, over 180 minority parties? Because we've seen some of your members as part of the joint task.
Seriously, in a parliament, you can have this back and forth. Even the APC with 176 members, if a vote is called today, you and I know that not all 176 members will vote for the APC candidate, whoever might emerge from the APC as a top aspirant. So also with the greater majority, we are not deluding ourselves that we must remain 182 members. But with the number that we have and the greater majority of that minority caucus deciding that if we band together, we'll be able to make a headway, I'm sure that we can also poach some people from the All Progressives Congress to allow us achieve our goals for the 10th National Assembly.
I'm looking at the names of the co-conveners and members that are said to have signed that communique. And I see Honorable Abdulmumin Jibrin's name there, for example, of the NNPP. And I mean, he's been at the residence of the president-elect. So what exactly is going on there?
The president-elect for now belongs to everybody. And Honorable Abdulmumin is a free citizen. He can visit. But I should also let you know that 2 nights ago, when we held that meeting at the Transcorp Hilton, Honorable Abdulmumin was also in that meeting, and he signed into what we are doing.
So there are those who will naturally think that, well, maybe this is actually also working together for the APC. Maybe all of these groups springing up will eventually do the bidding of the APC. Can you vouch for Nigerians that, well, you will not do the bidding of the APC?
We don't need to do the bidding of the APC. When I talked about scenarios under which the minority can bind together to achieve a predetermined outcome, if we cast our minds back to the 2015 scenario, somebody from the minority People's Democratic Party at the time emerged as Deputy Senate President, talking about the distinguished Senator Ike Ekweremadu, under an APC President of the Senate. So everything is fluid. We are not working for the APC, we are working for the minority, and this 10th National Assembly is one that is going to come with a whole lot of difference. Look at the Labour Party with 35 members, and you know what the Labour Party stands for the good of the ordinary Nigerian. So it's not going to be business as usual. Instead, it's business unusual, and that is why from day one, we are putting even the supposed majority on its toes. So we are not going to do the bidding of any political party. We are doing the bidding of the minority caucuses as the Constitution expects us to hold the government to account.
Well, when you say things are fluid, I just want Nigerians to maybe understand what's going on behind the scenes. You were originally in APGA, am I correct, when you were in the 7th House? Am I correct?
Yeah.
And then
yes, you're correct.
And then you moved to the APC, if I'm correct as well.
Yes.
And now you are in Labour Party. So, I mean, wouldn't you move back to the APC? That's always the question a lot of people ask, that things are really just fluid, as you said. So, I mean, maybe the lines are blurred. Are you saying that you will not eventually personally move back to the APC?
No, I stayed in APC for almost 8 years. There is nothing to look for in the APC. In the APC, we thought that we could give the APC a landing spot in the southeast. But as it were, you saw that during the whole of the 8 years, my region of the southeast held the shorter end of the stick. And even when it came to the issue of the presidency, all other positions were being microzoned to specific regions. But in that instance, nobody from the southeast was considered worthy, and the thing was thrown open to the south. And so, if it's thrown open to the south, just like the PDP did, you can see the way the southeast has rewarded both the PDP and the APC in terms of the vote catch from that area. So there is no motivation for me to go back to Egypt.
Okay, well, it's interesting you describe that as Egypt. But speak to us. What factors then will determine who the greater majority will throw up as a candidate for speakership? Some have said that, well, don't look at region too much, look at competence. Some have said just how many bills has that person put up, for example, how many bills have been successful, have really impacted people. So what factors would you be, using to pick that your candidate?
Well, one of the major factors for me is the independence of the legislature. If I were to give the APC free consultancy, they better not go the route of zoning, because when you try to pigeonhole people to a certain region, that is when the legislature, as it were, reacts. Members are expected to choose its own leaders. And if you allow the field open, there are a whole lot of factors. The way you relate with your colleagues, somebody who promotes national unity, who has respect, is just first amongst equals. But when we see or sense the fingers of the executive in choosing our leadership, recent history dictates that members will revote and not go for such a candidate, because the whole idea of democracy is about separation of powers, checks and balances, and all of that. So those are part of the considerations for us. We must be able to be allowed to make our own choices and of leadership and presiding officers.
Ultimately, I mean, democracy has a major role for opposition, especially in providing alternative ideas, putting pressure on the ruling party and all of that. Is there a philosophy that binds this greater majority together, especially for Nigerians whom you represent? Is there a philosophy that binds you together?
The philosophy basically is taken from Lord Acton, the British historian, who said that power corrupts and absolute power corrupts absolutely. There is no way we are going to allow one man or one political party have dominance over the system, especially an important branch of government, an important arm of government like the legislature. The dissent does not necessarily mean disagreement. It's just a living in the development process. It helps, unlike what we have in the current situation, where a certain presiding officer is widely acclaimed to have said that whatever comes from the executive is going to sail through willy-nilly. Nobody wants that kind of parliament. We want a parliament that will speak for the Nigerian people, that will interrogate every action of the executive, who would also interrogate his own policies, his own motions, and his own bills. That is the kind of parliament that we want, and that is the binding philosophy that brought us together under the greater minority.
And I think that's a great place to leave it. We'd like to thank you so much, Honorable Afam Ogene, member-elect for the 10th Assembly. Thank you for your time, and we'll definitely be watching to see how things play out.
My pleasure. Thank you for having me.